Good morning. Welcome to the Democratic Alliance's Congress. It's tipped to be one of the most important congresses for the DA. That's certainly how the party has framed it. There's an incredibly larger contingent of the media here, and that's been pointed out by the DA as one of the indicators that there's a lot more interest. With me is John Steenhuisen. He's the leader of the DA. He hopes to be the leader of the DA again tomorrow. He's certainly running for the position. For this conversation, John, thank you for joining us. I thought we could focus on the party. A lot's been said about your candidature for leadership, but let's talk about the DA. One of the important points that's going to come out of this conference is the DA's attitude towards other parties. Obviously, a lot of people talking about leadership right now, but how important is the DA's attitude and the discussion around the DA's attitude towards other parties going to be?
Well, I think it's going to be very important. I think that next year is going to be the first election in 75 years when no party is going to end up with its own majority at a national level. So, of course, we must speak to other parties, and we must start that process of doing so. We've had some trial runs in a number of municipalities, and we've learned some things about what works and what doesn't work. And obviously this will allow us to fine-tune what we do going forward. But definitely, I think coalition country is with us, whether we like it or not. We'd obviously like our own majority, but coalitions are going to be a fact of life.
Coalition country is with us, whether we like it or not. That's really the reality around the country. A few municipalities where you've governed with the majority, you've kind of held those up to be the beacon of what you could expect from the DA. But really, it's the areas where you've governed with large coalitions that have defined how the DA is actually going to be in government. John, let's go to a tricky point. You're not governing with the ANC at the moment anywhere in the country. Is that a possibility still?
Well, look, I think that the first possibility and the first thing and focus we've got to get is getting the ANC out of power and losing their majority. If we don't bring the ANC below 50%, there's no game in town next year, and we're going to continue on this terrible trajectory into the future. So the focus is on bringing the ANC below 50%, forming a new majority and building a new majority with like-minded opposition parties. That's first prize. But we also have to save South Africa from the big danger, and that's of an ANC-EFF tie-up, and the EFF getting into power at a national level. So I think that it's hard to say at this stage what the what the specific formula is going to be or what the alignment is going to be. But I would say this: we would much rather work with like-minded opposition parties to be able to govern and to make a difference in South Africa, However, whatever happens, we will be working very hard to keep the EFF out of getting into national government. And I think there's going to be some tough choices for all parties to look at once those chips fall after that election. So I don't think anything's off the table at the moment, if that's what you're asking. I think I think we've got to look at what the options are. And certainly if I'm elected, I'll be setting out on Sunday where I think the party needs to be positioning and a way forward. So I'm looking forward to getting elected, hopefully, so I can make that speech.
Yeah, look, you're obviously running against Dr. Mpho Phalatse. The campaign has been tough at the moment, but I'd just like to focus on the coalitions. You've got a hard and fast position that you won't work with the EFF.
Correct.
You don't have a hard and fast position with regards to the ANC. We understand that there's no policy proposal to even make that decision at this conference. You said you want to work with like-minded opposition parties. If the ANC is below 50%, and you look at the two policy positions between the DA and the ANC, there's not a lot of difference between them. We've seen the ANC taking policy decisions that the DA has endorsed in the past. So is the ANC a like-minded party, actually? Well,
I see even Mr. Mbeki agrees with a lot of things we're doing these days, so I suppose that's a good sign. I would say this, that it comes down to the core values and principles: non-racialism, respect for the rule of law and the Constitution, social market economy that treats the business and private sectors partners in the growth and job agenda, and building a capable state free of cadre deployment and corruption. We will talk to any party that agrees that. Why the EFF is not a compatible partner for us is because if you overlay their 7 pillars over those 4 key values and principles, they're completely incongruent. There's no ways you can work with a party that wants a Marxist Chavez-style economy, that wants expropriation without compensation, that doesn't believe in the rule of law and believes that the state should own all land in the country. So it makes it very, very difficult. So I'm saying, if you put those principles on the table and you say, who can we work with in that? Those parties that want to work with us will have to ascribe to those values and principles. Otherwise, you end up with a situation like we found in Coalitions 1.0 in the 2016 election, where you end up in government and you're not able to implement your own policies, and pretty soon you're being dragged down the road of nepotism, of being asked to turn a blind eye to corruption, etc. So there's only one thing worse than not getting into government, that's governing and governing badly and not according to your values and principles. That's why those values and principles are the essential cornerstone of any foundation going up.
And that's what happened in the coalitions with the PA. I saw Rob Hersoff putting a piece together saying that the PA and the DA should really work it out, because he thinks that those are two parties that should be governing together. Do you think that's something you'll want to deal with at this conference, or your attitude towards the PA?
Well, I can't understand why the PA have thrown their lot in with the ANC. I think that why would you be wanting to prop up a government that is so badly messed up, has so badly stolen from people, has so badly governed that people live with sewage running down the streets without access to sanitation, where we've got 3-year-old children dying in pit latrines? Why would you want to throw your lot in with them? And so that makes me question what the PA's real motives are. And it makes it very difficult to come to some agreement with them when they're busy propping up the very rotten regime we're trying to change.
We'll have a bigger discussion in coalitions as the conference goes by. I think we've got about 5 minutes before you need to get involved there. You'll be delivering your speech a little bit later. Before we let you go, John, what do you think of how it started, about your delegates and some of the constitutional amendment proposals? I see the DA women and the youth are wanting to be part of the Federal Council. Those are quite interesting proposals. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's some great stuff, and I think that this is great for internal democracy in our party. We're one of the only parties in the country that actually practices internal democracy. Every 3 years we have a congress like this. We elect our leaders. We don't appoint our leaders. We make sure that everyone in the party gets an opportunity to have a voice. And I think if you look at those parties that are really struggling now, are those parties that have no internal democracy. The leaders appoint themselves, they hand appoint their provincial leaders, and you eventually then end up with a dictatorship. And as I say, dictators never prosper, and democracy is always a much better option. So regardless of what happens here, whether I win or lose on Sunday, I'm delighted that we've been able to have this democratic process that's going to give whoever is elected leader the legitimacy to be able to lead the party into the next election.
Before I let you go, do you have a target for how you want to perform in next year's elections? Are you going to put out a percentage?
Yeah, we won't be putting out a percentage yet, because it's still, the landscape's moving very, very quickly. It's also going to be very interesting to see what happens in the ANC as we proceed, because there's definitely two factions and streams of thought there. One that now wants to work with the EFF and another that doesn't. And it's going to be interesting to see where the chips fall in that particular angle, because I think it's going to have a big impact of what's going to happen going forward.
You won't put out a percentage, but
I'd obviously want to improve on the last election results. I want growth, and I want growth on the last local government election result into this election. We were able to increase from 2019 into 2021. I want to see growth. I don't think that it's going to be possible to be happy unless we've grown in a way in which reflects the changing attitudes of the people in South Africa.
If you win as leader, could you stay the leader of the Democratic Alliance if you lose support at the polls? Do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think it'll be up for that particular part for the party to decide. I think it would be difficult to go backwards on 2021 and then still want to stick around. I think that the buck stops with the leader, and I think that I'm very, very aware of the fact that, as I'm seeking election, that there's a big burden to be able to bear going into the next 15 months. And I'm up for the challenge. I wouldn't have put my name forward if I didn't believe about the energy, the passion and the vigor and the determination to see the DA growing into that election. And I'm very encouraged by the polling. I'm very encouraged by the recent by-election victories that shows that we're growing. And I'm very encouraged by the working together with some opposition partners, like the IFP in KZN, for instance, where together and working constructively and maturely, we've been able to take seats off the ANC.
Thank you, John. Put your head on the block there for the next elections. John Steenhuisen from the Democratic Alliance. You just said that the buck stops with the leader, and essentially that's going to be one of the big takeaways from some of the commentary here. Also that the DA not working with the ANC off the table. We'll explore that conversation going forward, also taking a look at the DA's performance in different coalitions over the last 3 years. And of course, we're leading up to the election of a new leader for the Democratic Alliance. That's happening here at this Congress. We're at the Gallagher Estate in Midrand. It is the DA's Congress, the first in 3 years. John Steenhuisen hoping to be re-elected, running against Mpho Phalatse. Helen Ziller is coming into the position of Federal Council Chairperson, uncontested. She'll be taking the lead of the Democratic Alliance's engine room, essentially, towards the next election, and that's really what this conference is all about. That's why there's a lot of attention here, and why people are looking towards the DA to see what their strategy will be going to 2024. For now, though, it's back to the studio.
Absolutely. Govan Whittle, thanks very much indeed. Considered the DA's most consequential conference yet. Govan Whittle's live to us there from Midrand at the Gallagher Convention Centre. That's where a lot of today's business around the DA's Federal Congress is taking place.